Hey guys, 3D Printed Life here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to use Repetier host. Now, of course, this is not specific to the 1UP and 2UP. This works for any 3D printer that you can actually use send G-code to. So let me just get started real quick. There's essentially 4 main tabs in Repetier, and you'll see them up here. Object Placement, Slicer, G-code Editor, and Manual Control. Object Placement is where you add the STL files. You hit the little plus button. You add the file, it's simple as that. You can also subtract it to get rid of it, copy it to make copies. I'm sorry for the shakiness, I was just at the gym. And then something you always want to do is hit this button, Drop Object. That will make sure it is touching the bottom of the build platform before you slice it. And also if it says something down here next to normals, if it says not oriented, what you do is you hit that little blue button with the arrow, this one that says fix normals, and that should fix the problem. If you're having mesh errors, you have to use another program to fix those, such as NetFab, and that will help. Now, once you have your objects laid out on your build platform, to move around, left mouse click to rotate, click the middle mouse wheel to pan, and the right mouse button moves objects. You have to click on the well, you don't have to click on the object. You just have to have it selected, and then you can click anywhere and move it around. Also with positioning, you can adjust the scale and you can rotate it accordingly. Those are pretty much self-explanatory. That's it. Next, when you go into Slicer, I will be doing an in-depth tutorial on how to use Slicer and all the settings soon, so don't worry about that. But for now, all you really do is hit Slice with Slicer. What that's going to do is chop up this solid STL file into layers, and these layers are made out of G-code, which is what the printer runs off of. And you'll see it'll turn blue right here. It takes a second to update, but there it is. So if you actually zoom in, oh, I probably shouldn't look through the phone as I'm doing this. There we go. You will see that it's comprised of a bunch of lines, because this is where the filament is going to be laid down. Alright, can zoom out here. Also with the G-code editor, a handy feature, you can click show single layer and you can scroll through the layers, see what the info looks like, what the printer is doing. Other than that, this page is pretty much pointless. Next, manual control. You will be on this one the most often when you are printing. This will show you your print progress as it is going in the window. These buttons move around your printer. Do not click the home buttons unless you have end stops, which you won't by default if you're using a 1UP or 2UP. If you're using another printer, you might have home or end stops. Make sure you do before you hit the home button, otherwise it's going to cause some damage to your printer. Also Z up and down. Now, this is the power button for the whole printer overall. You don't really need it because you can just unplug it. Pretty simple. From the computer, I mean. You have a button to disable your stepper motors, which will disable all of them. They will not be re-enabled until you move that axis. So if I turn off the motors, they will all be disabled. If I click move the X, only the X motor will be active, holding the X axis in place. The Y and the Z motors will still be disabled. And then park brings it to your park position. I don't use that either. It's too risky, because if it doesn't work or something, you got a problem. Stuff while you're printing, you can adjust feed rate and flow rate. Feed rate, I believe that increases the speed of the actual printer as it's going, and flow rate increases the rate of the extruder. This is essentially the same as a setting in Slicer, which I will discuss in the calibration tutorial and the Slicer tutorials. Now also you have the option to heat your print bed to what temperature. Once it's heated up, you can set a certain amount of plastic to extrude. You can also heat the print bed if you have one. If you have the custom firmware installed, you can also turn on the fan, as you can hear, and you can adjust the speed, which is fun to play with. Oops, sorry, I forgot that I'm holding my phone upside down. So that's basically the 4 main tabs that you'll be using most often. Other than those tabs, you will also be probably going through the settings up top here. Main one being under the config, your firmware EEPROM configuration settings. Those are for your steps per millimeter of all the axes. You usually don't have to touch those unless something's wrong with your extruder, but this should work stock, so don't go in here unless you know what you're doing. Below that, 3D view configuration, you don't really need to use that. General settings, nothing in there. I lied, there's really nothing else except for printer settings, which apparently you can't access while it's plugged in, which actually makes a lot of sense. So if you want to adjust printer settings, you must disconnect it and then go into printer settings and adjust them. You cannot adjust the settings while it is connected. You'll see that this printer settings button is still here and you can still click it, but these changes will not become active until after you unplug or you disconnect and reconnect your printer. That actually explains a lot of the weird things that were happening to me before. Now I'm just going to do a quick G-code segment because that's all you really need. There are 4 basic commands that you will need to know to move your machine and to, if you want to write custom G-code at the start and end of your G-code generation files. The first one is G1. G1. This moves the printer in the most simple way. It just goes straight to the position. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it to go to the position 1010. So I'm going to put X10, Y10, Z10, and now the speed is F, and then I believe the speed is in millimeters per minute. I usually just do 5,000 because that usually maxes out all of them. Each axis has its own maximum feed rate, so even if you put 5 million in there, it's not going to go that fast. So I hit this button, or hit enter, and what it's going to do is it's going to move. My screw's a little squeaky, just ignore that. It's going to move to the position 10, 10, 10. And it's going to move so that they all arrive at the same time. As you saw, the Y and the X were going much slower than the Z, the Z was going full speed, Y and X were going slower so that they would all arrive at the same time. The next command is G92. G92 is a very important one because it sets the current position as 0. So what you do is the same as before, G92. Now you put X0, Y0, Z0. Just like that, you hit enter. Oh, that's supposed to be a 0, but you get the point. And that will set your current coordinates as the 0, 0, 0 position. Now, for custom firmware purposes, I will just mention these now. You do not need them to move your machine around. The command G90. This will set all of your positions to absolute, which basically means the coordinate on this grid. So that dot being 0, 0, you can go anywhere you want. Now, the command G91 sets it to relative. So that would mean that the coordinate system as you enter is relative to the position it is currently at. For example, I'm currently at the point 10, 10 on my printer, 10, 10, 10. If I entered G91 and then I put G1, X10, Y10, Z10, every axis would increase by 10 millimeters. And if I did it again, it would increase by 10 once again. Now if I switch to absolute positioning, G90, it would stay at its position if I entered G1, X10, Y10, Z10. So that's really the basics to Repetier and to G-code. There's much more on G-code. I'll put a link to the wiki in the description where it describes all about all the different G-code commands, but those 4 are really the most essential. So stay tuned if you would like to see the tutorial on how to use Slicer, as well as how to essentially print an object. It's going to be a very quick one, but you get the deal. And then one more tutorial on I completely forget what, so yeah, look for that coming soon. I will also be doing some more updates, as well as eventually a video on all the suggested upgrades you should print. As you can see, I have my brand new custom printed dampening feet, and they make this machine so much quieter you wouldn't even believe it. But that's all for another time. You know, nut holders, bracket, clippy thing, all that stuff. That will all be in another video. So thank you all for watching this. I'll see you later.